Turning now to more results from election night, how turnout impacted the final numbers, as well as surprises, what both parties and voters learned from this election season, and what we can expect out of Lansing. All right, Nolan and Stephen, happy day after a couple days after elections. So have you kind of shook it all off? And I guess I'm going to ask you both for your large picture. What do we learn from all of this?
I've shook it off. Steve still looks a little puny over there.
I'm just tired.
It's been a long week, and then we've got the bankruptcy decision on Friday, so you've got to gear back up for that. All right, so but what did we learn out of all this?
One of the things we learned is it's extraordinarily hard to motivate voters to the polls in an election like this when they're not all that crazy about the candidate. Democrats under Lon Johnson tried every trick in the book to get their base out, to get voters out, the 900,000 Democrats who didn't vote in 2010, and they didn't move the needle at all. There were fewer voters, this time 80-some thousand fewer voters, 12,000 fewer voters in Detroit where the president came in and try to whip everybody up and get them to the polls. You got to have a candidate. You can't just do it with formulas and models and iPhones and mail out packets. You got to have a candidate to get people out.
You know, it's interesting. You would think, Stephen, because the race had been projected to be so close for governor with all of these polls, that would spur people to get engaged and knowing that it was right on the line. It wasn't like it was a blowout in these, last days.
It wasn't, and that, I mean, that's, again, that gets back to your candidate. I think they put a lot on this strategy of targeting these voters who don't show up for midterm elections and saying that if we go to them directly and get them to vote absentee, it can make the difference. What they didn't do was shore up their base. The turnout for them on election day failed them. I think that this is a more systemic problem inside the Democratic Party. I think the way they've been choosing candidates is problematic. They haven't had a competitive primary for governor since 2002. Jennifer Granholm was the last person on that side who had to compete for that job. I think that matters. I think that matters in terms of campaigning. It matters in terms of defining your message.
So what does this mean for Lon Johnson?
I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't mean bad repercussions for him, because I think the idea of, let's put aside the strategy of trying to win. Right. The idea of expanding the base of voters is something we should all be about. There is no reason that people sit home in midterm elections. So he has the right idea, and it worked remarkably well for the people he reached out to. What they lost was their base, who were not excited about their candidate. He really got beaten pretty badly in a way that
he lost
was
by
surprising.
4 points against an incumbent governor. Howard Volpe lost by 20 to John Engler
against a much more popular governor.
This should have been that same sort of beatdown, and the governor just squeaked by. I think Schauer ran a good campaign.
He ran a good campaign for somebody who had almost no name recognition when he got into the race and didn't have a message about who he was to sell to voters. And that, again, I think these are things that sometimes get cleaned up in that primary process.
I mean, you can't minimize here the fact that the governor ran. I mean, he won, and winning's all that matters. But he ran a really poor campaign.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. But what he does have to worry about now is working in January with new members in the Senate and in the House, and both Republican controlled. So you would think that maybe on the surface, oh, this will be easy. They're all Republicans and they can all work together and push through their agenda. Do you see any difficulty there, Stephen?
Well, I think he has a different kind of agenda than the leadership in the House and the Senate are likely to have. I mean, this is easily the most conservative legislature I think I've seen in my lifetime in Michigan. You have people who were elected this time who believe that homosexuality should be a crime. I mean, not just anti-gay marriage, but just anti-gay. You have leadership on both sides of the legislature who are very strident about social issues. This is not a governor who has said that he wants to deal with those things. He will have to wrestle with them.
They have to run
this is going to have to be the last word, Nolan. Go ahead.
He doesn't. So
he doesn't. So
it's
he should have an advantage.
It's extraordinarily hard to get tax increases and stuff like that through. Governor doesn't face the voters again. They do.
All right, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in lame duck in terms of what the governor was talking about in transportation and road funding. All right, gentlemen, that is going to do it for us. Thanks so much for joining us for MiWeek. You can always find us at MiWeek.org and watch any shows that you might have missed on demand. We are also on Facebook and on Twitter at MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us, and our thanks to the governor for joining us as well. I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you next week for MiWeek. Take care.